Now recording. Well, hello and welcome to the introductory session of the three Mavens. And if you don't know what a Maven is, basically it's a wise person, someone who's been around the block a couple of times, done the video, got the t-shirt, knows exactly what's going on. The thing is, we all travel around different blocks. They're different t-shirts, they're different videos, because everybody is unique. So before we go on, let's introduce ourselves so you know who you're talking to or who you're listening to, because hopefully you'll be talking to us a little bit soon. And then we'll go on from there. So, Sarah, let's start with you.
Hello, I'm Sarah. So I come to this conversation and I've definitely been around the block, Leslie. Mine's been quite a wild block, I have to say. But yeah, I've had a sort of interesting background. I worked in TV for many, many years and I worked with women. So I always worked with people that were coming on set, going in front of the camera. Then it was more working with brides and, the biggest day of the life and working with them before they stepped, going down the aisle. So yeah, I think I've got an interesting perspective of women and the state that we get ourselves into at different stages in our life.
Where's that accent from?
Leeds,
Leeds,
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire. Okay. Groovy. Vanessa.
Hello, right. Well, I'm Vanessa. I've also sort of probably been there, done it, got the t-shirt as well. I come in a completely different way to other people. I've worked in firstly retail, all sorts of different management, customer service, all that sort of thing. But I've also quite quite far on with the whole sort of complementary therapy thing. So I'm actually a Reiki master, do crystal healing as well as doing the hypnotherapy and the NLP too. So yeah, that's me. But I'm sure you get to know a little bit more about me as the conversation progresses.
Cool. And I'm Leslie. And yeah, the block I've been around is rather interesting and has little tangents here and there. I do go into tangents, and you will find this out. I
Oh, so
started
quite
off.
Leslie.
Oh, yeah, I'm a mixed mash of everything. I started out working with animals because animals were easier than people because people hurt. People say things when you don't know they're going to say them. Animals, you know exactly where you are with them. If they don't like you, they will bite you, or they will kick you, or they will do something very nasty to you, especially if they're skunks. But on the other hand, I eventually came to the understanding that I had always loved language. I have always understood that language has an amazing way of changing our minds. So I thought to myself, maybe I should look at that. And then one night at 3 o'clock in the morning, a Rottweiler of 6 stone with a very bad bladder came in and made it happen. Because after that, I couldn't work with animals anymore. I had cut my rotator cuff.
Oh
So
no.
basically, the universe said, you will work with people whether you like it or not. And you're going to do it now. So this is where we are. Now, all of us are of a certain age when we are change.
Yeah, well, that's the first one that I want to talk about because how
Yeah.
funny is it that I grew at, so my first job was when I was 12. I worked in a hair salon, sweeping up and washing hair. And I can remember the women coming in and talking about someone going, they were talking perfectly normal. And then all of a sudden they go, well, she's going through change. And it was like, I didn't understand until now the reason why they whispered. I still don't know why they whispered. I think it's because it was something that just wasn't discussed back then when I was 12. I'm 54 this year. So that's a very long time ago that people were saying that kind of thing. I'm not sure how long it lasted for because until I went through the change, I didn't realize, but I actually thought that's the way it should be described
Yeah.
because it is
It is a change.
change.
Yeah.
Everything about everything changes. And it's
In fact, the,
so interesting.
the thing is, I remember a similar embarrassment and shameful situation when it came to puberty,
Yeah.
because it was like
Yeah.
I had this conversation with my mother because I missed the education day at school. I was off for some reason, which was very unlike me. And I went back and I heard all these stories about, oh, you're going to go, you're going to find this load of blood in the pan and it's really scary. And it's like this. And but this is how it trickles down and percolates into children's minds. They pick up on things. But then I'm looking at it and then suddenly one day I found this packet of sanitary towels in my drawer. They had appeared as if by magic. And I'm looking at them going, what? Did mum put something in my drawer again that's not mine? Because she did that. She used to put her stuff in my cupboard. So I went downstairs and I said, "What are those things in my drawer and why are they there?" She said, "Ask your father."
No.
She did. She did.
My
I
father
said,
would have, oh, sorry,
"You got
piece of paper
so
in front of
so
me.
being not naive, but really a bit cheeky because I knew what the hell was going on. I went down and I said to my dad, "Mum says I've got to ask you about this." So I asked him and he went, "No, go and talk to your mother."
Bless.
Of course it
Going
would.
round in
Bless him.
circles, isn't it? Yeah.
But this is it. It's not just this change. We tend to forget that this is a natural process.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why I don't quite understand why people don't talk about it, about either of them. Thankfully, my mum, my dad was, I say, he'd be read his paper and he'd be like, oh, women's stuff, and was completely and utterly lost. But my mum was really good and had sort of already put me through that. I didn't learn about things at school. My mum started her period really early. She was eight, believe it or not.
Right. Okay.
So I think that she'd sort of like prepared me because she didn't want to be in a similar situation to the way she was when she was younger. So I was lucky in the fact that I had that information. So we'd had the chat about everything. But even still, it was sort of a bit weird.
I think they do better now. I think they do start quite a bit younger because I think my mum started talking to me about it when I was a teenager. I didn't want to. I was so embarrassed about everything. I was in that, but it was almost a bit too late where I was in the middle of puberty. It not happen, but my mum even approaching the subject to me as a 13-year-old, I was just like, what are you talking to me for? Because, you're just so uncomfortable. Whereas I feel like had we known a bit more and it hadn't been made out to be this weird secret thing again, like the change, that just like this is what your body does, this is what your body goes through, and just but it wasn't. It's just it's so strange, isn't it, that we don't do that?
Yeah, but well, partly I think it's because there's so much mythology around it that and everybody's experience is slightly different. Although
Yeah,
the body is going through the same mechanism, the same procedure, with it's how people respond to that, what they
yeah,
think about it, what their beliefs are around it, which is what we're going to be talking about, really.
Well,
yeah,
yeah, totally. Totally, because it depends on how it's been broached to you. Like you were saying,
Mm.
Sarah, your experience was completely different. Leslie's experience was different to mine. And it's then how you sort of react to it, isn't it?
yeah,
Is it something that you then take down as a secret and oh, it's a bad thing, and oh, when you bleed, you can't do this, you can't do games, you can't do swimming, you can't do what? No. Anyway, but the same sort of thing when it comes to menopause, there's so many different stories. And this is what we want to try and find out from people, isn't it? It's sort of like,
yeah.
what their stories are, what they might need to want to discuss, whether we can help that.
Yeah, I mean,
And
this is the thing, isn't it, with us, with the things that obviously it's something that happens. It's physiological change. It happens in the body. Things do happen, but then there's so many parts of it that you can help with hypno, with NLP, around the thoughts, around, I was sort of thinking about when it got quite bad for me at points, and the intense thoughts that I had would just run riot. And I'd always been a pretty kind of, glasses half full person. I would have said I was always pretty positive, pretty happy, always thought that, I had the best in life, if you like, whether I did or I didn't. I was
Yeah,
one of those people that did. But what I noticed about myself in the change, it was that's a big thing that changed for me, is the way that I was thinking now. Suddenly, I was thinking that everybody else was thinking something about me, but almost like to an obsessiveness. And even the people who I know love me the most, my children and my husband, I actually felt like they were thinking horrible thoughts about me. It was almost like paranoia.
that's so bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah. And
Why?
and
It just affects women.
why did that happen? And that's how I felt, because internally I felt like I was failing. I was probably coming downstairs and thinking, oh my God, they've left the cupboard open, they've left it. And I was chuntering and chuntering. And they would have felt that energy. So obviously you start with that thoughts, and as we know, the thoughts create the feelings, the emotions, and then it creates the energy and the behaviors. So that all started from thought, and it was a case of, once I got back in touch with the thought, and like we'll talk about this later on as time goes on this podcast, is the way we can zoom out, perceptual positioning, and starting to understand other people around us going through that time. There's so much that you can do to help yourself, to help those thoughts, which then change everything. It changes the emotion, it changes the energy, and then it changes
Absolutely.
ultimately all your behaviors and what you're doing, which is incredible. So there's
Mm.
hope.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the other word for it, the proper word for it, menopause. And I'm
Menopause.
thinking of breaking it down slightly. Men, oh, pause. Let's take a pause. Let's take that out of the situation and we just deal with ourselves for a little while. Indigenous cultures all over the world have different ways of dealing with people who are going through menopause. And basically, a lot of them, particularly Native American style lodges we know more about than anybody else, the Lakota, Dakota, Dene nations, their women don't are not allowed to become medicine people until they've passed the menopause. Because up to that point, their energy was in bringing children into the world, creating children. But all that creativity doesn't just go away just because you've stopped being able to have children. What happens is it brings it up and allows more creative ideas, it allows you to think differently. And I think this is what we're actually just beginning to understand, and they knew centuries ago. Was
Yeah.
basically, we are not done. We are only
Absolutely not.
starting.
And
We are only just starting.
what a beautiful way to look at it. What an
Yeah.
incredibly beautiful way. Interesting. I was telling my 85-year-old mother-in-law about that we were doing this podcast and this conversation. And she said for her, interestingly, the only thing that she struggled with the most was that she couldn't have babies anymore. And she had her first baby at 18, because they kind of did back then, so it was quite young. And so she'd not known anything in her adult life other than being a mum and
Mm.
Mm.
and she said she can't really remember much else about it really. That was her thing that she really felt really quite low about, was that. And I said, well, that's where the shift in identity comes, because her identity, all her adult life had been all around being a mum.
Mm.
The
And
thing
then
is, though, she
thinking,
was domesticated into that identity.
yeah,
The fact is that women are only useful for bearing
yeah,
children. And
yeah.
that comes from dogma, it comes from a whole load of ideas, but it's also a suppression of power, an understanding
She
of the
didn't
power
have a
that we have.
career, you see. Her career
No,
was,
because they weren't
and for that,
allowed. It wasn't
yeah,
expected. And
so
this is it.
interesting, isn't it?
Expectations can kill so much
Yeah,
because actually we're being domesticated into an idea, into an ideal. And we don't get a say in, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. So therefore, there are people who can't have babies who are feeling less than because they can't have babies. But
yeah,
actually, they could be doing so many other things. and using it. But this all-consuming power, I understand that, women want to have babies. I mean, basically, if they didn't, we'd be in trouble.
We would be in trouble.
Yeah.
But
We'd be in a lot of trouble.
I've got lots of friends now who, for different reasons or very different reasons, they didn't have children. And I feel like I, d- I don't feel like there's the judgment there that it was years ago. I feel like it's definitely it's really kind of accepted. It's not a thing, but having spoke to some women, they say people do go, oh, and they question them, why didn't you? And it's quite a personal thing to discuss with somebody, really, isn't it? Why they
Yeah,
did or they didn't.
yeah, it's interesting politically.
I think it's changed a lot, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
We were discussing this the other day, that actually during the war, women had to go out and they had to do the jobs, they had
Yeah,
to do everything that they'd
yeah,
not had to do before. And then when the chaps came back from the war, and it was like, oh, you now got to go back
yeah.
and
There was no
just
going back.
normal.
yeah. You
And
can't put
it's
the
like,
beetle back in the
no,
box.
you can't do
No,
that. No, no, no.
no.
But it's not so much putting back in the box. It's just like yes.
Yes.
I mean,
I
even
mean,
sort of going back 50 years where, I'm 55 in next month. But even going back to when I was a little girl, it wasn't really, my mum did work, but it was most people in my, mum and dad's arena didn't work if they were a woman. It was very much more sort of that they would stay at home and look after the children. Whereas that's changed so much now. I mean, I worked all the way through, I think I had 2 weeks off with my kids and stuff and continued working. And, you know, is that the right thing to do? I don't know.
Wow, we don't
It
know.
worked for me.
It's so
sometimes you don't
interesting.
have a choice. But
Yeah,
Exactly.
there's a
No.
thing that this is great when it comes down to the like general population. However, the people who are in areas of leadership in America and here, two women came up with the idea. Should women who don't have babies, who don't have children, be allowed to vote? Because they don't have any skin in the game as far as the future is concerned. And that was said of Theresa May and of one of the people who were running for governor or senator in America. Now, basically, we all have skin in the game because,
gosh.
Sorry,
you
I
know,
don't understand that. What did they what did they say? Sorry.
Well, so
because
because
I've
you've
just
not,
literally gone
because
from
you don't have children, you have
because
no
you,
say in the future of your country and the future of the world because
what?
you're not going to pass anything on to the child.
I've never heard
You
that,
have
but
no
that is
legacy.
insane.
no.
And
Well,
what?
I mean,
That's
this is the
insane.
kind of thinking that is coming percolating down from
You
government
see, this
areas.
is where I don't watch the news for this reason.
No, I don't
I
watch the news
don't,
either,
I
but
don't
somebody said
listen.
this to me and I looked at them and I went, "Excuse me?"
I can't listen to this kind of idiocracy. It's not,
to,
it's not, if it's not in my world, if I can't hear it, it's not there.
to
It's
a certain
not
extent, we are
happening.
in an idiocracy.
What?
To a certain extent, we are in an idiocracy.
It is. Well, this is why I can't listen to it. I just listen to what it's. I've got very selective hearing these days and very selective watching. I'll
Well,
only
that's the
watch it.
change for you. That's
That's
the change for
I
you.
listen. I will not waste my time listening to anything like that.
I
I
was going
think
to
is
say that's too
There you
right.
go.
idiocracy.
We get an attitude, don't we? We get an attitude. It's a case of, listen,
Oh,
mate, don't mess with me, because I know now that I have rage.
do you know what's funny is I was always I would say I was probably I mean I grew up on a council estate in a pub. I had to be quite tough, and I probably did have quite a feisty personality. And then what I kind of did was lost it all. So at 48, I thought I've got dementia, I've got things, and I just wanted to curl up in a ball and just cancel all my business, cancel everything that I'd built up, and I wanted to go and hide, and I wanted to become so small so that I could manage because I just felt like I was losing my mind. And I think what's happened now after, so what is it, 5, 6 years, I've done lots of things and I feel like I'm coming back up the other side where I'm like, no, hang on a minute.
Isn't it
No,
interesting, though, that particularly nowadays, the first thing we go to is dementia.
yeah. I
As
did.
soon as we get
I
brain fog or
cried
we
to the
forget,
doctor. I said,
we
I've got
yeah,
dementia.
you go into a room, you go, why am I here? What am I here for? And actually, we know, because we've been trained that way to know, is that we've lost our train of thought. Something has interrupted our train of thought. And that thought's just going back out the door. But, we'll come back.
But
Mm.
I've been having that since I was about 12 anyway.
Me too. Me too. If it, if it didn't have anything to do with the animal I was with at the time, there was nothing I would remember.
But
My
it's
my my boss could come back from holiday away 2 weeks or something like that, skiing in Verbier or wherever, and he'd come back and he'd say, "Right, what happened?" And I could give him rote by rote every animal, every situation, everything that he asked me for, without even looking at the computer, because I had not attention deficit disorder. I had attention definitely focused
Mm.
on purpose, order, because I don't think it's a disorder. It
Well, I
was like
think
blinkers in, this is my job, this is my life, this is my identity.
I've
mm,
realised that a lot of the things, unless I can make it work in my map of the world, which again, this is all what we can talk about in the future, is I delete a lot of stuff because I realised that when I've got a neurodiverse brain, so I have a shorter shelf anyway. So on top of menopause, it made it even shorter. So it was already a short shelf. So information goes on, that will fall off. Information goes on, that will fall off. Suddenly it was even shorter, so there was just hardly room. It was just literally going like that.
So basically, you're saying that you have a brain like a sieve.
Yeah, yeah. Unless I can make use of that information and I know how it's going to work, which is like we talk about with the map of the world and making things work. As soon as I can do that with it, oh, it's going to stay because I know what I can do with that
I was
information.
going to say, you're putting yourself down there, girl, because your shelf is really quite long.
Yeah,
When
this
I
is it.
need
This is our opinion of ourselves that is
it.
actually focused on someone else's idea of what we think they might be thinking about
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
This is the whole thing. We're making stories up about something we have absolutely no business making stories up about because
No,
it's
in
demeaning
my
ourselves.
defense, that is one of the ways that they describe things like with dyslexia or
Yeah,
ADHD or things like that. It's
yeah,
so I think it just helps me understand
Yes.
when to let when to know when to stop with information. Like sometimes
yeah.
it's like a power in knowing, right, okay, I need to just stop for a bit with information because otherwise
Put your
I will
bookend on.
keep
Yeah.
I will keep getting
I maybe
information.
need a bit of your sorting facility because I think somebody said to me the other day there, the trouble with you is you have too many thoughts about things. You just everything is in there and it just spills out because you're taking leaps and I can't follow you.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And I go into one of those things where I suddenly go off and, like I did with the political thing, go off on like, oh yeah, that information I know, so I'm just going to pop it in there, or that information I know, I'm going to pop it in there. But I do it vocally. I don't just do it in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as soon as it
We're going
comes
to
in
call
here,
you
it comes out there.
Side
No
Quest
filter.
Leslie from now on. Side Quest.
Come on back in.
What I'm trying to get at a
Come
word in
on,
edgeways like
reel
this.
it in. Get a focus on. Get the blinkers on. Blinkers now.
We'll get in there, thank you. Just to sort of say that actually it's weird, isn't it? Because your experience of menopause, Sarah, was very different to mine, and I know Leslie had a completely different one. But mine was very much more of physical things that happened to me. But mentally, it wasn't a problem. But loads of people I've noticed have had this anxiety, have had this sort of, oh, I can't do anything anymore sort of attitude. And yeah, the confidence, the self-esteem, that's sort of all gone on,
Oh,
sort of, it's just, as you say, gone small, gone small, gone small,
so small.
and the question people have been questioning, oh my God, is that something the matter with my mind? But whether it's the fact that, as you say, so much is going on internally that we don't have that capability of processing anything else.
No,
So it's like we
couldn't.
just deal with what we can deal with. And then we've only got this little bit for dealing with normal everyday life. As I say, I know I was very much more physically affected by the menopause, etc. And like yourself, I think, I've gone through that now and I've come to the other side, but only by doing lots and lots of research. Because they're, even talking to older people about it, even talking to people of peer people as well, um, talking to peer people,
Yeah,
talking to my
people.
peers, I'll
Yeah,
get it right, get the English right in a minute. There's just so much things that aren't known about
yeah,
menopause.
yeah.
And so this is where the conversation needed to be opened up, isn't it? So why
Mm.
we came together. Because one, yes, we can help certain things, other things we can't help with the whole NLP and hypnotherapy side of things. But we can do a lot with that.
So
But
much.
there's so much that just needs to be discussed. Just from, my mum used to have a bad knee. Now I realise that that bad knee was probably something to do with menopause. Whereas people sort of go, oh, menopause, the change, hot flashes, isn't it? But it's
Yeah.
not just,
I didn't even get hot flashes.
you see,
Don't
there
stop
we are.
it.
I
And
didn't.
Leslie was just like one boiling mass.
I
10,
didn't even get them.
10,
Do
10
you
to
know
15
what's
minutes after a cup
interesting?
of tea, after anything, 10 to 15 minutes. And that was me. Whoosh. And it
Do you
was
know
like,
what's really
straight
interesting?
Coming
My
on.
mum said something really interesting about her grandma. So she said she can remember going to her grandma's house. So my mum's 72, so it will have been a very long time ago. And she said her grandma she said she used to sit, she had like bloomers, like big knickers, like they were like bloomers that they were sat, and she was sat in the chair. She lived with my Auntie Sheila and Uncle Derek. The both the grandma and granddad lived there, my great grandma and granddad.
Yeah.
And my mum said, when I realised, she went, actually, she was probably only in her 50s at this point. So when my mum had been going then, when she was little, great grandma seemed like a really old woman, but she was
Yes.
actually only in her 50s. And so I think the other thing is, there is more expectation on our generations because we built careers, because we did all those things that maybe generations before didn't get the opportunity to do. Suddenly now we've hit menopause, we've got these businesses, and we can't just sit in a chair with our big bloomers on anymore. We've got to keep running this business with this dementia
I've,
feeling
I've
brain
just got
and
that
this
vision
these
in my head.
feelings of like feeling like a nutcase of paranoia. I mean, it's like, whereas I'd have been all right if I could have been like my great grandma and just sat in some
Sat
big
in your knickers.
bloomers in a chair.
who doesn't? Listen, in the age of Zoom, we have all sat in our knickers. We have all been
Speak for
there in our
yourself, Leslie,
pajamas.
love.
In,
Speak
in,
for
in our
yourself.
pajamas. Well, just
But we could have
some things.
done that.
Listen, some of them are very famously didn't have any knickers on when they didn't realise they were on Zoom when it first started. So who, and that wasn't a female. So basically,
Let's not go
what
down
we're
that
going to
route.
be doing, what we're going to be doing
What do
to
we?
wrap this up
Should
just
we
now.
should we be a little bit more sensible now?
Yes, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the whole enchilada with the guacamole and the fresh cream and everything else that goes with it, all the
No,
fillings, all the
Elsa.
toppings, everything that surrounds this one thing. Because, as a friend of ours says, there's not a lot we can do about the hardware, but the software we can deal
That's it.
with. We can renegotiate. We can reprogram the software. So that's
Reset.
what we're going to be talking about,
We can
and that's what we're going to be
restyle
doing.
it.
Yeah, we're restyling it. We're rebooting it. We're revealing it so that actually, because you can see it, then you can deal with it much easier.
Right. You've got to be aware
So,
of it, haven't you?
yeah, yeah. So we'll be talking about that. And next time that we come in, the first thing that we're going to be talking about, because that's the most important thing really, is identity. So
Absolutely.
we will see you in the next one.